Hi, this is Inside B&B Live, and I'm Pam Holt. Today I'm speaking with Mercedes Kerrison. She's with Abode Staging and Design, and we're going to talk about how to create an appealing Airbnb type guest suite. And Mercedes is an expert on this. She just completed a really nice looking guest space for a client of hers, and because this platform doesn't let us show images as easily as I would like, we're going to talk about it in theory, and then we're going to come back together in a later date, and we're going to show you all the images and do the big reveal on her space. So I'm going to bring her in now. We're going to talk about all the different considerations that go into planning the decor for a guest space, and we're going to talk about budgeting issues and decor choices, and she's going to give us all of the lowdown. So hang on one second. Let's bring her in. I know she, oh, here she comes. Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. It's great to finally meet you.
Likewise, I'm excited to be here.
Me too. I have been following your designs. I love the things that you've been doing. I like that you do both staging and design because that's really helpful for us. Sorry, let me try to adjust things here so I can see you. Okay, that's better. And so I was just, in my intro, I was just saying how you are the expert on this because you just recently finished guest space for a client who has their listing on Airbnb, and how you and I were going to come together at a later date to do the big reveal with all the images. But for right now, we're going to talk about the general considerations that a host might need to consider when planning and designing a guest space. So let's start off. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your business, and then we'll talk about planning a guest suite.
Okay. Well, I am a home stager and interior designer.
Okay. Can you tell us the difference between those two?
Yes. So with home staging, um, what you want to do is you want to appeal to a broad market. And with home staging, when you're staging, you actually want to make sure that you're appealing to the right market. So for
Okay.
instance, I'm located in New York City. The demographic on the Upper East Side is very different from the demographic in Tribeca, which is downtown.
Okay.
Um, Upper East Side clients are tend to be a little bit more sophisticated, have more. There's a little more of a sophisticated decor, and then when you head downtown, it's a little bit more minimalist. It's a little bit more, let's say, it's a little bit more edgy.
Okay.
So when you're staging, you want to keep that in mind that you're always keeping the target um, demographic in mind when you're staging a
Okay.
space.
And so for hosts, it's really important for them to understand who their ultimate client is, their guest, their
Yeah.
ideal community. So you need to have that down for a variety of reasons, including marketing, but also even at the beginning when you're designing the space. Who are you designing the space for? So I guess that works across the board.
Exactly. And just to add a little bit more to that, like when you're, let's say, staging a guest room, that also depends on location too. It's like, but you can have fun with the design,
Okay,
but at
good.
the end of the day, you always want to make sure that it's always inviting. The space always feels cozy and welcoming. But for instance, if I'm staging a guest room in a college town versus staging a guest room that's country chic in Connecticut, I might do something different with the color scheme.
Okay.
And I might do something different with the decor to appeal to, that demographic.
Okay, let's finish up our definition of the difference between staging and interior design because there seems like there's a lot of overlap, obviously. But is the design does that is that the precursor to the staging, or is it just sort of the overarching, and they're staging as a part of the design, or how do you think of them as two different aspects, I suppose?
Well, they're actually not that much different. The difference with interior design is, or the minor difference is, when you're designing for a client, you have many different clients. So when I design for a client, I want to make sure that I'm designing, based on their personality and how they want to live in the space. So it's very individualistic.
Okay.
But staging and design, always go hand in hand. because you still want to be able to relate to the customer
Okay.
in your design. Whether it be color, whether it be the color that you choose, whether it be like the type of aesthetic that you choose. That's how they intermingle with one another.
Okay. Got it. I got
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So with staging, it's actually faster paced. It goes on at a faster pace because
Okay.
you have to get everything in and out, in the unit quickly. It's a quicker turnaround. But with interior design, the only difference is that the projects actually tend to span out longer
Okay.
because you're ordering more custom pieces. You're working with contractors day in and day
Got
out.
it. Got it. Got
Projects.
it. Okay. I get it. That's a good explanation. Okay. So if someone comes to you and says that they're contemplating listing a space, a spare space on an Airbnb type platform, where do you start with that? Do they need to, you know, throw away everything and start from scratch? Can they keep certain pieces? How do you get started?
So how I normally get started with that is I ask them, I like to see the space and see what they have, and I ask them, what do they want to consider keeping? Or yeah, what do they want to consider keeping?
Okay.
Because the thing is, you also have to think of everybody has a different budget,
Right.
right? So like, for instance, if you're designing a guest space for an Airbnb space, um, there are certain things that items that you always want to have in the room. Of course, like besides the bed, like does the client have like a space for like a vanity? Like, do they have a desk that can be used like for working or as a vanity? Is there an
Hmm.
accent chair in the room? So that's how I usually get started first.
Okay.
I like to take inventory of what they have, and then we can decide what they can keep and what new things to bring in.
Okay, so do you decide what they can keep, or do they tell you some things are a must-have? Like, for instance, I always envision, and this is why I have a hard time as a designer. I always envision that there's, something that a owner just loves, and it's just awful. And so, how do you break it to them? Do you try to work around that piece? Do you just come out and say, "This is never going to work"? I mean, how do you handle that?
So I try to work around that piece.
Okay.
I really try to work around that piece. Some things are of sentimental value to people.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, they mean certain things. So it really depends on what it is.
Okay.
If it's a piece of art that they must have in the room, then we can work around the art.
Okay.
Um, you know, let's say if it's a love seat that they have, but let's say the pattern is not fitting in with the rest of this, like the designer color scheme of the room, then I might suggest, how about we get a slip cover for this love
Okay.
seat,
Okay.
to hide things in. So it's
Okay.
really a case by case thing.
Okay. Okay. So once you decide what's staying, then where do you go? What happens next?
Okay, so once we decide what's staying, then what I normally do is, um, I normally decide, okay, I usually pick the paint color last. So once we
Oh,
figured out like what's going to stay in the room decor wise, then we decide on the paint color. Sometimes, in most cases, I've seen that most spaces need a new paint color. So from there, what I do is I pick the paint color from there, and then we go into like buying like extra accessories, like new bedding. Maybe we need a new lamp. Maybe we need new art. But usually, if everything is already there, like if the bed, the desk, the chairs, let's say some art that the client wants to use is already existing, then I pick the paint color last and then work from there.
okay. So are you picking the paint color as something that coordinates with the things that are there? Are you choosing a paint color that's already there in, the art or something else and tying it in like that? Or how do you go about selecting the right paint color?
Well, it depends. It can go both ways. Sometimes I can pull the color story from the artwork and pick the paint
Okay.
color that way. Or let's say if everything, the art and the furniture, let's say if everything kind of has like an earth tone,
Hmm.
then I'll pick the paint color based off of all of those elements.
Okay. So, okay, that's good. So, what must be included in a successful guest room? What furniture pieces? And accents. What do we need? Because, I think where it falls apart for a lot of people is they have a bed and they've got some linens and they think, okay, well, I've got a guest room. And although they do, that is when you look at photographs on Airbnb and you see people who have just done that, that's that the scroll continues and people keep looking because it doesn't have enough impact. So what essential pieces would you recommend for a successful suite?
Okay, so I would definitely recommend um, a desk or a vanity table,
Okay.
an office chair,
Okay.
an accent chair.
Okay.
For sure.
Both?
Both, I
Both
would
if you
say
can
both.
fit. Okay. Hmm.
Yes, and again, it also depends on the size of the room. Sometimes you can have the desk and the desk chair and the accent chair, or you can just have one or the other.
Okay.
But the reason why I mentioned the accent chair is because when you come in from a long day of sightseeing and you want to sit down and curl up and read a book, you have that chair, that's separate from the bed as a place to
Hmm.
relax.
Hmm. Nice. Yes.
I would yes, I would also say like travel size um, travel size items, like let's say like toothpaste, lotions. I would have a bathrobe, um,
Okay.
reading lamp, slippers. But I would say the core things besides the bed should definitely be try to create a vanity area if you can,
Hmm.
bedside table. So the guests can put like their coffee on the bedside table or their jewelry, their phone, um,
Hmm.
a chair. And I would also say, maybe we'll get into this later, but I would also say one of the best necessities to have are like a high thread count, like cotton sheets.
Okay. Yeah.
Like when thinking about textiles and materials, cotton sheets are a great necessity or a must-have
Hmm.
in Airbnb space.
Okay. So now we have our major pieces. We have our paint color. What are we doing for impact? How are we grabbing the attention of that potential guest who's scrolling through, lots and lots of listings?
I would say art is major. I think it's so important to have interesting art
Okay.
in an Airbnb space, and also, the way um, you decide to create the color scheme in the room. Like you can add wallpaper. Um, I would actually add like print and pattern in the
Okay.
room where I can. If I can't do it on wallpaper, then I would probably do it on like throw pillows, maybe with the throw that goes on the bed. Um, but I would say those things like making
Okay.
sure.
I'm always looking for ways to bring in some of the host personality. So, how would you? I know art is a good way to do that, but how else would you bring in personality? Because obviously that differentiates you from everybody else because only you are you, but also it differentiates your photos and it can be a part of your overall story. And so you can work you into a lot of the aspects of it without having to then, create a story around,
Mhm.
somebody else or something else or nothing else, which is the worst. So how would you bring in personality?
Um, I would bring that in, um, like with more accessories. Like maybe I would just add like an interesting mirror,
Okay.
like interesting vases, like all those things like have personality. Maybe like in those vases, like I'll put like some interesting tropical plants in those vases.
Okay.
Um,
Cute.
and yeah, and I would also say, like also accessories like with lamps. You can do lots of interesting things with lamps. So I would say like adding impact and adding a punch on the accessories in the room would actually, I think, help bring in more, accentuate more of a person's personality.
Okay. How would you suggest that hosts work with creating a budget? Do you sort of give them a range? Once you've seen the space, do you say, you should expect to, spend X for, the design and for whatever else for your fee, and for all of the accessories and everything that you have to do, or do they come to you and say, I have X number of dollars, what can you do? How should the budget work? Who should decide it, and when should it happen?
Okay, so the talk about budget should happen at the very beginning.
Okay.
Very beginning, and usually what happens is the norm is, I mean, usually we ask clients like what their budget is. And let's say if a client has a limited budget, then realistically we'll tell them, okay, well, if you want to have, let's say if you want to have the extra bedside table, or
Mm.
you want to add the extra art, this is what it's going to cost you, so are you willing to spend this?
Okay.
So as designers, that's what we do first. We just, we pretty much set the expectation up front, as to, what items are going to cost based on that client's taste level, or based on what they want to have in the room.
Okay. Well, will you work with the client like for, my personal policy is I will never spend money that I haven't been paid from from a guest. So, I mean, I may get the room to a particular level, and then that fabulous piece of art I may need to add the next time I have a paid guest. Is that going to be okay with you? Can we do it that way?
Can you clarify that question
So,
more?
so I always, so I try to tell hosts that they should work with what they have and they
Yeah.
should build on that. And so if we could get, you and I got a design together, but I couldn't at the time afford that fabulous piece of art that you wanted us to have in there. Could we, identify that piece of art, and then the next time I get paid from Airbnb or whoever my platform is, I could buy that art then and add it. Would that be okay? Would that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Because I like people to have a plan, and but I also like them not to come out of pocket for it. So I want things to progress. I want them to build on what they have, and I don't want them to think that they have to have all of the dollars, the budget available at one time, so that it keeps them from listing the space. Because I almost did this with my own space. I told this story before. I felt like I needed to redo my hardwood floors, and I was like, I'm not going to list my space until I redo, these hardwood floors. Well, tens of thousands of dollars later, when no one has mentioned my hardwood floors, I went on and listed anyway, and I'm really glad I did. I don't want anybody to get stuck not listing their space because it's not completely finished. So I just want to make sure that you're willing to, help them and work with them and sort of create a plan for future purchases once they get that paycheck.
Yeah, absolutely. And to piggyback off of what you're saying, at the end of the day, you just want to make sure that you just have the basics, like you have the necessities that are needed for the guest to feel comfortable enough in that space. So a
Okay.
piece that, like what you mentioned, the art is not the be all end all to the space, but what's going to matter is, do I have the right furnishings in there, and
Right.
do I have the right textiles, and necessities in there, to make the guests feel comfortable. That's what's key.
Okay. So would you say right now that there is a specific design trend that's more appealing, or what's trending for guest spaces? What kind of decor?
Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. I usually don't follow trends.
Oh, oh, that's
Um,
exciting.
yeah, I don't follow trends. I'm all about kind of, let's say, setting a trend. You know,
Okay, I like that.
sometimes that happens.
No, I
Sometimes,
like that.
yeah, sometimes that happens. Sometimes, like, I'll be working with a client, and the client wants to be adventurous with color, and then, like, we'll work with different colors. I'll pick something that works in that space, and then, maybe a few months later, I'll hear that, oh, teal is the must-have color.
You're like,
For
I know that. That's why I made it to you.
Yes, yes, yes. So I would say there's no particular trend. I think depending on where you are in the world, um, people design how they want to design. You have Scandinavian design, you have mid-century modern, you have people that are maximalists.
Hmm.
So to me, I mean, trends come from everywhere. Um, but I definitely, I don't believe in like just following trends. I believe
Okay,
in,
so you're
you know,
you're the
being
trendsetter.
aware.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, yeah, like it's good to be aware of what's, what's in and what's current.
Hmm.
Um, like I know that right now, like a lot of people are very much like into accent walls and like
Hmm.
wallpaper, but the thing is with trends, everything always comes around full circle. It comes, if it was in like 2 years ago, it's going to come back like 3, 4 years later.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's cool because then you can be as creative as you and your client decide to be, and
Yeah,
that's
it's a good challenge because the thing is, I think about like being timeless. Like you can
mm,
have, you can be a little trendy, you can have some trendy pieces, but at the end of the day, you want the space to feel timeless because I know that I can speak for myself. Like I've been in my apartment for 15 years, and I know that, um, I would say maybe twice I wanted to change my living room around. What happens is
okay.
sometimes you grow out of things, but that's why I just believe when I'm working with clients, I try to encourage them to, think about being timeless.
Okay. Okay. I like that. So, what are the kinds of things that the little details that hosts can do to make a guest room more appealing? What are the little touches that we can do to sort of stand out and be memorable in our guest mind?
Um, I would say add adding candles um, to the space. Um, I love candles because when you're in this, not only do they smell good, but it feels so welcoming when, you walk into the room and, the guest has the option to light candles.
That's
Um,
nice.
yes, I would also say add a bathrobe, like a nice, comfy, like fleece, chunky bathrobe in the room. Because the whole idea of that is after coming in from a long day, you can put the robe on, you can curl up and watch the TV, sit in the chair, read a
Light the
book, have a cup of
candles.
coffee,
Yes. Ah, sounds
and
great.
light the candles. And one of the other touches I like to put in the room is I also like adding flowers. I think flowers always added like a nice touch in the room. Whether
Nice.
it's on the desk, it could be a little plant on the bedside table. Plants are known to help be a mood lifter.
Hmm.
Plants are very uplift. Plants and flowers tend to be very uplifting.
Nice. I want to stay at your Airbnb suite. It sounds great. So, what's the best way for a host to work with a designer? At what point in their decision-making process, if they decide they're going to host, when should they contact you? And now, obviously, we're not doing in-person consultations so much. So how do we work with you on this?
Okay, so it depends on when you anticipate having guests stay in your space. So
Okay.
I would say it's really good. It would be good to contact the designer maybe like 2 to 3 months in advance.
Okay.
Um, I would say maybe about that. So that way we can talk about we can like really lay out a timeline for you as to what the scope of the project looks like.
Okay.
And it also and that timeline can fluctuate depending on what the client already has in the room. But
Okay.
if you're starting from scratch, I would say it's good to start give yourself ample time to work with a designer. Because there are many different components that go into building a design other than like let's say going to a home goods and picking things out like we have to
Right.
do a floor plan, make sure anything that we're going to put in there fits properly. We have to talk about the aesthetic. We have to talk about budget. So it's good to start talking about those things. That way, by the time you're ready to, let's say, put the guest room, let's say on the market, I'll say that.
Hmm.
If you're ready to put it out there, then we're at a place where everything's already ordered and we can start, staging the
Okay.
uh, room.
So if a person is just going to do the guest room, and they're not necessarily planning to renovate or remodel or refresh the rest of the home. Do you try to make the design consistent throughout the whole space, or can the guest room stand alone and be something completely and utterly different, or how do you like to work that?
That is a great question because what I always recommend is, let's say if outside of your guest room, your home's decor is traditional,
Mm-hmm.
then the guest room, I think, should stay within that realm. Because the thing is, let's say if you're hosting, and let's say there is the guest doesn't have their own bathroom, they just only have the room, but they're sharing a bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
That means they have to walk out of
Mm-hmm.
the guest room to be in the in the other parts of the home, and you want it to feel cohesive. So
Okay.
I recommend keeping the decor you have outside of the guest room cohesive with the rest of the home.
Okay, great. Well, you know what? I told you this will go by quickly, right? And so we're just about at the end, but I want to have everyone know that Mercedes and I have much more to talk about. And we're going to get into the details of how she designed this gorgeous guest suite that she did for a client. We're going to show you the big reveal, the images. She's going to talk about how she selected the items that are there, the color, the texture. It's gorgeous. It's just gorgeous. So we'll post again about that when we have that available for everybody. But in the meantime, for anyone who wants to get in touch with you, how can they reach you?
Okay, so you can reach me on Instagram. You can reach me.
What's your handle there?
It's abode underscore staging.
Okay.
That's one of
So
the ways.
everybody follow her there. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and you get follow me on Instagram,
Yes.
and you can also same thing on Facebook. On Facebook, my handle is Abode Staging and Design, and my website is Abode Staging and Design NYC.com. So you can
Okay.
reach site, Instagram, Facebook.
Great. Well, I can't thank you enough. This has been really cool. I thank everybody who's tuned in. I look forward to us talking again and expanding on this guest suite concept that you have mastered and that we need to master. Just want to say that next week I have a Pinterest expert coming on, and if you follow me in the past, you know that I have a fear of Pinterest. I don't understand it one bit, but apparently I need to master it. She's helped me. She's going to come on and she can help you too, because who knows what's going on there. But I know that's a real important platform for us all. So thank you, Mercedes. Thank you, everybody, for joining
Thank
us
you.
today. Yes, and I'll see you next week. Bye now.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Thank you.